Hey, She Slayers, this is a special sample cut from this week's episode. If you find this interesting, be sure to make time to go listen to the entire episode released this past Sunday. And please be sure to help a girl out and follow or subscribe to this podcast. Do you, this may be a stupid question, maybe it's not. Like, is there a point where you're too late to the game? Like, I talked about how, like, it seems like everybody, it's just probably my algorithm right now, but like, everybody's getting into it. Like, is it too late for the flipping? Is it too late to get into the short term rental? Like, I don't know.
Here's what I think.
Because Blackstone and Vanguard are coming in and buying everything, right? Like, so now, is it now like we're too late? Now we're competing with them?
I think your point's well taken, right? There's a lot of big players that never, and honestly, they're buying some of these bigger buildings and not really worried about like cash flow. Like
Right.
it's more like a long-term parking their money, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It's a stable asset to park their money. No, I don't. I'm a believer that here's what I think, because I've been at this a long time. I think that it's always a good time to buy. It's not always a good time to buy the same asset or the same and have the same strategy. That varies
Mm.
because of the market that we're in or what's happening, right? People are like, we're already in a recession, it's going to get worse. There's always a way to, my belief, right? Especially when it comes to housing. Housing is a basic need. Everyone, and I do believe this. I believe everyone has the right to live somewhere, a safe place, right? I do
Mhm.
believe that. And so if you come from that premise, right, of housing as a general piece, then you start to say, okay, can I be late to the game in Austin, right? I we had our conference in Austin. It's an adorable area. I don't own anything in Austin. If I'm now going into Austin and saying maybe there's your point's well taken in that particular market, maybe in the particular cycle it's in, right?
Mhm.
You could also say, am I late to the game in Austin in commercial? Well, you may not be, because that sector, that asset class is still kind of like no one knows about. So my opinion, though, is it is very market oriented. So when you
Yep.
say late to the game, yes, that can happen in certain areas and in certain strategies, right? I do believe, though, that in certain markets, and there's always an opportunity for market that is like kind of secondary. There's so many secondary markets that are thriving that there's still a lot of opportunity. Then you talk about strategy. So market and then strategy, like, oh, I can build a home here versus buy an existing home, right? So yeah, I'm not a big fan that this says it's all late to the game. I think
Right.
there's
You may be too late yeah, like Austin and Nashville, the homes may not be the best place to be looking for an investment at this point or
well, and also if you don't know your numbers. So meaning there
right.
could be that Nashville homeowner that is just so distressed, so frustrated that they're done. So
Mhm.
then you become late to the game if you're overpaying. That's when you're really late to any game.
Yes. Yep.
That's the name of the game, right? And if you don't know your numbers, if you
If
don't
you
know what's
don't know if you're
happening,
overpaying.
we were just looking, my
Yes.
husband and I literally right before this podcast, we're looking at some of our properties. And because we always have our Friday business meeting and we were looking at some of our properties. And we bought a property during COVID and then we bought a property like about a year after COVID, arguably in the same market. We paid more for that property after COVID than we did COVID, with the thought that our rents were also going to go up. And some of that hasn't transitioned because there's one part of the town and the other property is in another part of the town. So you got to remember, rental growth aligned with property value always matters, and that all matters in the you have to know the market, and you don't have to know everything about the market. You need to have a broker and people that do know more than you. We're never the ones that know everything about everything, but just to base it on your own knowledge is where you're gonna get stopped in this process. Don't rely on yourself, right? You got to have somebody who knows that local market, kind of knows what's happened and where it's going, and then you're able to say, what is the real rent that I can get for this property,
Mhm.
versus compared to what the value of the property is. That's what you're hedging, not just the cost of the property, but because you could argue that $1 million property, if I get more of a rent, then same as a $200,000 property. If I'm getting, it's not just more money means
Yep.
more rent, right?
Yep. I love hearing you explain this because like these concepts, like you're like, well, it's not that easy. And people want the like black and white, tell me what to do. There's one path in, and it's like, well, no, you got to know your numbers, which chiropractors are terrible at, by the way.
Uh-oh. All
Like
right.
terrible at.